पाकिस्तान में ये डर अच्छा है. This fear and this panic tells you two things. Pakistan knows it's borne the brunt of Indian Army and Air Force during Operation Sindoor, but Pakistan is apprehensive about the capabilities of the Indian Navy. Let's talk more about the capabilities of the Indian Navy that Pakistan fears. And joining me on this Battle Cry special broadcast are three specialists who know the pitch and the role of naval modernization and Pakistan's fears. I want to welcome on this broadcast Vice Admiral Sanjay Mahindru, former Deputy Chief of Naval Staff and the first CEO of INS Arihant, and for close to a decade. Commodore Praveen Rajpal again is a former submariner, and Sandeep Unnithan, a senior journalist, my colleague, who's been tracking developments so closely, especially on India's nuclear triad. Admiral Mahindru, welcome. Your reading of Pakistan's panic over the K4 missile test from INS Arihant. Is Pakistan in panic, sir, because its entire sea denial doctrine actually falls flat with India's enhanced capabilities?
Certainly, Gaurav, we set out with a very clear nuclear doctrine which sets out a minimum credible deterrence and assured retaliation. Now, an assured sea-based deterrence means of retaliation. Whatever the enemy may throw at you, we can absorb that and we will get back to the adversary with equal and punitive action. So, this development of the test of K4 has enhanced the range. We already had the capability in the B-05 in the Arihant. The range was limited. Now, with the same capability, we have enhanced the reach. We have enhanced the range which the missile can fire, reach, and therefore all the targets that one would like to engage in Pakistan or in China are now within the missile firing range. That puts to rest all apprehensions that we had or the adversaries had, saying that our sea-based deterrence, while proven as a concept, was not actually effective. Now we are effective. And as we increase the number of submarines, and as you mentioned the gentleman from the other side of the border, we will be able to then achieve a continuous sea-based deterrence. So once we have continuous at-sea deterrence, any saber rattling by anybody else to say that he will, engage in weapon or threat, or that we will be able to get back to him. And I mean, that is the aim of deterrence. So if we have created such a response.
Absolutely. Sir, stay with me. Sandeep, the K4 tested off, the test launch from INS Arihant. This virtually is Brahmastra plus. Brahmastra you could fire once. But this is Brahmastra plus. The K4 features a cold launch capability, advanced inertial navigation with NAVIC. So nobody else from outside can stop this. It can maneuver. It can evade defenses. Is this Brahmastra plus the deterrence that would deter the state sponsor of radical Islamist terror or even expansionist forces from crossing India's Lakshman Rekha?
Absolutely, Gaurav. And the K4 is a one-of-a-kind missile. In fact, there are very few photographs of it. Very few people have actually seen the missile. And the fact is that it gives India the ability to target both its adversaries from the Bay of Bengal. And that is the importance of the K4 missile. The earlier missile, which is the K15, also known as the B-05, is a short-ranged missile. It's, again, a phenomenal missile. It maneuvers within the atmosphere. It is a ballistic missile with a characteristics of a cruise missile. It's almost, there is very few missiles in that class. But that meant, the short range of the missile meant that the firing platform, one of the Arihant-class boats, had to go closer to the adversary's coastline. But with a missile of this capability, this range, 3,500 kilometers, it means that you can fire the missiles from the Bay of Bengal. That's the goal of our strategic doctrine, which calls for targeting our adversaries from the safety of the Bay of Bengal, which means that you don't have to mount long deterrent patrols of the kind that you would have to with a shorter range missile. So the K4 is literally, it's one of the most sophisticated nuclear-tipped missiles in India's arsenal. And this is a huge, huge capability that India has got. And Gaurav, very quickly, I must add that 2025 is a landmark year because we are being told that the fourth Arihant-class boat, the S4 Star, has sailed out for sea trials. And that is a very big milestone that we've crossed because for the first time now, India has 4 ballistic missile submarines out at sea, 2 in service, 2 undergoing sea trials. That means that that project that began in 1998 with the Arihant being laid down, the steel was cut in 1998. In the year of the Pokhran tests. 27 years later, all 4 submarines are in the water. And as Admiral Mahindru mentioned, we are very close to CASD, that is continuous at sea deterrent patrols.
Oh, absolutely. Continuously at sea. You don't have to come back to shore for a very, very long time. Or one boat comes back, the other boat is already there. The submarine is already there. Commodore Rajpal, do Pakistan's fears indicate it has nothing, absolutely nothing to counter the threat that's lurking underwater? And a nuclear-powered submarine with a capability of striking over 3,500 kilometers away accurately would indicate from anywhere the Indian Navy deems fit, the K4 could deliver justice to Pakistan should it even think of going nuclear.
Yeah, Gaurav, absolutely what Admiral Mahindru said earlier or Mr. Sandeep Unnithan said, I just agree to those things in a sense that Brigadier Kazmi, being the advisor to the National Command Authority, probably I assume the highest authority there for the nuclear weapons, if he's rattled, I think we have managed to, put the fear of death into their minds. He has a lot of reasons to worry about it now, in the sense that unless they commit a blunder, unless they improve their ways and methods and means, they are going to get it back at our time and our choosing and from our own backyard. Now with the K4 operationalized, I mean, we had a test last year also, and now a few days ago when we tested it, I presume the missile is fully proven now and is operationalized to be put on the vessels where it is meant to go. And once the vessel sails out of the eastern seaboard, nobody knows where it is gone and where it will strike from. So both our adversaries, the one on the western coast and on the northern borders, have a lot to worry about it.
Very interesting you should mention that, sir. Not just the adversary on the western side, but also on our northern borders. Admiral Mahindru, would you see this as a game changer for India in the Indian Ocean region? Does Pakistan's fear stem from the fact that the range and accuracy means that India is second to none in Asia, not even to Pakistan's godfather, China?
Absolutely, Gaurav. 2 important things, like I mentioned, reach, and you mentioned the capability for enhanced inertial navigation. Uh, and like Sandeep mentioned, if we are able to launch and engage all possible targets from within the northern part of the Bay of Bengal, then our problem of reaching out, going into the South China Sea or going into the Arabian Sea is solved. We don't need to do that. So now we've got a weapon which, if I move across to the Arabian Sea, I can engage many more targets, actually, many more. I mean, actually, the entire Pakistan gets covered from the Bay of Bengal itself. I really don't need to go anywhere more. And for that reason, this is a game changer. For that reason, it is a game changer because the length of the patrol reduces drastically. You don't have to go all the way across to the to the Arabian Sea
Arabian
to
Sea.
commence your patrol. You get out of your harbor, find a convenient place, a deep water which is convenient to you, and you are there on patrol. Whatever the orders which come to the submarine from the Nuclear Command Authority can be therefore executed without any great fear. Now, for an adversary to come into the Bay of Bengal is going to be a challenge because we are very strong there. We've got the Eastern Naval Command there. We've got our own submarines. We've got anti-submarine weapons, ships, platforms, everything. So, in a way, we are able to protect our assets and engage all the targets that we want to. So, in that way, certainly I would endorse and agree that it is a game changer.
Commodore Rajpal, there are some analysts in Pakistan, there are experts in Pakistan who are labeling the K4 test from INS Arihant as a red flag. Now, they claim it completely destabilizes or at least risks destabilizing the region by exceeding India's defensive needs. So, why do you think Pakistan is so rattled right now?
Well, They have a reason to be rattled. They don't have a similar weapon system or a weapon delivery system. And they are ages away from getting such a thing. They are presently getting only a conventional submarine, some I think 7 or 8 of them from China. I'm sorry, 4 from China now. These are conventional boats. To deliver a weapon like what we have developed or our scientists, DRDO has developed, they need a proper vessel for it, which they do not have, nor are they anywhere close to getting it. So obviously they are rattled by it. And as I said earlier, unless they improve their ways and means of dealing with our country, they are going to get it. But their worry, they should have, but then we have a very matured political and military leadership, wherein with the no first use doctrine that we follow, as Admiral also said, we will never be using it at the first instance. And we have called their bluff during the Op Sindoor also, after the Pahalgam, where they kept on saber rattling, but then we called their bluff. But we never use the weapon, and we are not going to use it. We have a policy, and we will follow that policy.
Okay. Sandeep, India says, and by and large, India has followed that very effectively. We have a stated no first use policy. But now Pakistan says there is strategic ambiguity that's coming in that. And these analysts in Pakistan also fear that our missile development is not just Pakistan centric. According to them, maybe not even China centric. India has bigger plans. Now, is that Pakistan's fear that it's trying to create this fear mongering amongst the West? Is there a realization in Pakistan, especially post Galwan in 2020 and Operation Sindoor, that India's modernization marks a paradigm shift in how we respond to expansionist forces in the region and to a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, but others needn't fear India?
Absolutely, Gaurav. And, we are in a very dire predicament, as in we share borders with two nuclear-armed countries which are in a collusive relationship to the west and to the north. And our entire focus of our entire deterrence, nuclear deterrence, is directed at these two countries. And there's nothing to believe that we have any other country that we want to, deter with our nuclear weapons. The foundation of our nuclear weapons program, right from the 1960s, has been that very, very big shift in the entire Asia, which was China's nuclear test in 1964, just 2 years after the India-China border war. And that has basically been the entire focus of our attention. The nuclear weapons, the Triad, was meant to deter China and Pakistan. And very quickly, Gaurav, what we saw in Operation Sindoor is that while we are facing two fronts physically on the land borders, one to the west and one to the north, as experts have told us, during Operation Sindoor, those two fronts merged into one. Electronically, you're looking at a single front where Pakistan is getting live data feeds from Chinese satellites, Chinese radars, Chinese C4ISR assets. And that is spells dire doom for India if we were to look at even conventional nuclear deterrence vis-a-vis Pakistan. Pakistan could get a lot of feeds from satellites, Chinese satellites and all of that, which they could actually use against us. And this is why platforms like the Arihant-class, the 4 submarines, are very important. You can track nuclear assets on the ground. You can track ground-based launchers, our nuclear trains, but you cannot track an Arihant-class submarine once it sails out from the eastern seaboard. It's invisible to everything, and that is what's planted the seed of, of fear in Pakistan, Gaurav.
Admiral Mahindru, does the Chinese monitoring of the K4 activities and concerns over escalation in the Indian Ocean region point to unease even in Beijing? What does the second launch of the K4 from INS Arihant mean on the India-China maritime front in your appreciation, sir?
China will also be watching, and you're aware that they had deployed ships which are capable of monitoring such firings earlier during the month. And so we a little bit and then carried out the firing as we wanted. So certainly now they also know that a large part of China, almost up to Beijing, is now within the range of our sea-based deterrence as well. With Agni 5, we already had these targets in our range, but it's a totally different game when you have these targets within your sea-based deterrence. That means there is no way of tracking them. There is no way of carrying out a first strike on them because you don't know where they are. So whatever happens, even if you take us totally by surprise, the sea-based deterrence will still strike you. So certainly, China will also be watching it very carefully. This increase in range, like I mentioned, is a quantitative increase. It is almost a 3 to 4 time increase in range, and it will reset and make our nuclear deterrence, which we had set out to do in when we did our nuclear tests in '98, and we endorsed our doctrine in 2003. That is what we had set out to do, and what we have done in 2003 and 2026, we have finally established the triad in its completeness.
This is, of course, a missile of deterrence. It's not to be used, but Pakistan just knows that if push comes to shove, then there will be no Pakistan should it misbehave with India beyond a point and even think of going nuclear. I want to thank all my guests, Admiral Mahindru and Commodore Rajpal and Sandeep, for joining me. And this is completely in keeping line with the Indian civilizational philosophy, the Bharatiya philosophy and Sanskriti, where even Sri Ram said, Vinay na manat jaladi jad, bhai teen din beat, bole sakop Ram tab, bhai bin hoye na preet. You know, when the ocean didn't give way for Lord Ram to cross over into Sri Lanka to bring back Mata Sita, he then pulled out his bow and arrow, and the sea just came and stood in silence with hands folded. And that is where Goswami Tulsidas in Ramcharitmanas says, there is no respect without fear. And it's very clear. India's enemies, India's adversaries must fear India. That is where respect comes from. That is all I have for you on this Battle Cry special broadcast. Have a wonderful 2026, and many thanks for watching.